Sorry for the delay. I'm quite the important man, so I was giving an interview there. So love me.
We do. Lots.
I want to welcome everybody here, and I want to thank everybody for coming. It's an amazing show of love and just endearment for JC. We have a wonderful group here, and as you can see, a wonderful display for JC that was put together by a number of people that I just want to thank for this. George Womack and his efforts to put all this together. There will be a service for those of y'all that can attend on February the 9th at the Chapel at New Mexico Military Institute. So there'll be another event, and then there'll be an event on February the 21st in California for Jacqueline and the California State Highway Patrol are putting on an event out there for him as well. So I just want to thank everyone for coming. Enjoy your time spending your stories with each other on love for JC. And I'd like Todd Collier to please come up and give the invocation and his talk.
I got this news, and I couldn't finish reading it until I got on the phone with my friend Randy, because I knew how close you guys were. And for the past week, I've been trying to put some words together as a prayer, as a tribute, as a way to honor a great man. For those of you who don't know me, I'm a Presbyterian clergy and been a chaplain for clergy most of my career. For those of you who do know me, yeah. It's proof that miracles do happen. So I have a few words as a prayer and a tribute to honor this great man. As I said, I've been working on him for a week. I probably wrote him and rewrote him 12 times. I mean, my last edits were in Klein's Corners as I drove out of here from Texas and stayed with Randy and Antia last night. I could see his face. The warmth, the smile. Big bear of a man. Being real was his style. From Goss to Marine, from Army to CHP. He rescued, he captured to protect you and me. A friend to many, true friend indeed. JC was there, whatever the need. The countless flights, the calls to save. He'd run to help. That's what he gave. He lived to help. He jumped at the chance. Where others faltered, JC would advance. He found life in the air. Flying was like breathing. And now we're left on the earth, grieving. I looked at God and I shake my fist. You took him too young. My heart's in a twist. We clutch to our memories and question why. There are no words that satisfy. The gifts he gave to the ones he knew are treasured memories from the one who flew. His final achievement, that fateful night, saved one more life from that fiery flight. One soul lives to tell of the courage of the bold before he'd cross that final threshold. To the last minute, JC would fight. He'd not go gently in May that great good night. Wounded, but not broken. A Hall of Famer, no less. To the very end, he gave his best. A natural pilot, so fearless, so rare, saved countless lives as he took to the air. Loyalty, honor, duty, achievement. His life, his message to us in bereavement. To lay down your life. There is no greater love. That is the message he got from above. He leaves us not words, but a life fully lived. Measured, not by take, but with all he could give. Eternal Father, strong to save, have mercy, send comfort from beyond the grave. Guard and guide the ones who fly, those who rescue from the sky. Gone from our sight is one of your best. Having known J.C., we are truly blessed. Meet us, O God, in our prayers of meekness, weeping, cussing. We cry from our weakness. Gone from our ranks to the heavenly chorus, the man who flew has gone before us. You who rose up from the grave, wrap your arms around the brave. Eternal Father, comfort, make new. Embrace for eternity the man who flew. A life cut short, a true man with class. To J.C., our friend, let's raise a glass. From death comes new life. J.C.'s message to the end. Reach out, strengthen all the ones you call friend. The man who flew, in memory of J.C. Dodd.
Can we just call it off right there? I'd say we call it off.
I'm Randy Brown, for those of you that don't know me. I want to thank Greg and Denise for this spectacular event. A big round of applause for the church. What a tough thing to do, right? They've been dehydrated 4 times from crying just in the last 3 days. And just in case those of you who didn't know, JC being the anal retentive, that's the best word.
Well prepared.
He had all this laid out. He realized that he might reach an untimely end, and he had a very clear plan for his funeral services. Short service, long party. We're going to respect that. We adopted JC into our family about 8 years ago. My mom back there took the lead on that. Bob and JC went back, my brother Bob and JC went back to high school together, and Bob drug him down to a trail ride, and now's it. We just figured, he was adopted. He didn't have a family, so he needed one. So we made him one. So JC was really part of our family. And thanks to Mom and my stepdad, Tom, and my brother Bob, and my brother Chuck, and all of his kids, and all of my kids who really accepted JC as just part of our family. He was just part of the family. We do take the blame for introducing him to McAllen Scotch. And he was an innocent prior to that. But he invested a large portion of his retirement savings into the McAllen Scotch Company. Over the years, we've had a ton of things that we did together. We went to all the trail rides. We went to our family hunting camp. went to homecoming, came to my house countless times to fix every broken piece of farm equipment that I owned. He was a perfectionist. I never could get a weld by him. He'd grind out every weld I ever made and do it again so that it could be just perfect. And he would occasionally take pictures of his welds and send them to this internet group of abusive people called Rate My Weld, so that he could get even just a little bit better at welding, and of course make me feel like a schmuck. Anyway, clearly JC was a perfectionist in everything, and you know, that's a big part of what I think he and I were like oil and water. He wanted everything to be perfect. I just wanted to get it out the front door, and it was really cool. JC and I really truly had a wonderful relationship as brothers. I always thought JC was my best friend, but I think if I did a Facebook review over the last week, I was wrong. Hell, everybody was his best friend. What happened to me? The hell with you.
They're all full of it, Randy.
You know, but I think that's really my point of this this celebration, and that is that, you know, JC's not here; he's gone. But every one of us, we love each other in the same way that JC reached out to each of us personally to say how much he cared about us. Hell, he'd be 300 miles from my house and call me going, "I'm going to be there tonight." I'm close. You're not close. How many times have we driven through a town that we knew one of our alumni friends was in, and we drove on by. We didn't quite have time, you know. We didn't quite have time to stop. JC always had time to stop. And he had time to call and ask how you were doing, to share part of your life with you. And, you know, that's what we now need to respect and show to each other, that same kind of love, of caring. Because the truth is, when we stand up and mill around, you know, we hug each other because we love each other. We have this shared common history, that this shared experience that makes us this really cool unit of people. And we need to reach out to each other every time we get a chance and put our arms around each other and tell each other how much we love each other. And that's the message that JC is going to leave in my heart, and I hope he leaves in yours. So with that, I bid my friend adieu, but I bid all you guys welcome. Thanks.
And this was my hat. You see, he stole it from Greg. And then he left it at my house because it wouldn't fit in his motorcycle. Now, if you leave a hat at my house for a year, it's mine. Then he has the audacity to show back up with a pickup and take it. But it fits me, as you can tell. And I got a lot of miles on it.
And your turkey feathers.
Yeah.
Not the buzzard feather. They don't have turkey.
I sure don't want to be here this event today because I'm having to say goodbye to a great friend, and it's hard. We don't really want to say goodbye, and I've decided I'm not gonna. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do kind of what Randy suggested, and I'm gonna try to keep some of the good pieces of JC with me, and I'm going to try to share them with you. So, JC and I met as new cadets, and 1975.
Five.
5. We shared the same academic counselor, Paula Rhodes, at NMMI, and I was roommates with Paula's son. And JC was on the debate team, and Paula was the debate team leader. And, so he was in her office a lot, and I got to know him. And yeah, he's a pretty serious cadet. He knew what he was there for, and he got it done. And he graduated with honors. He was one of the highest GPA students in my class. They came out of there. And, JC loved Goss. It was his life when he was a cadet. Like many of us do, I knew JC pretty well when I was at NMMI, but kind of lose touch with people over time. And I lost touch with JC for, 20 years. And in 1998, I was at homecoming in Roswell. And JC was standing in Sallyport looking kind of lonely and looking out across the quadrangle. And of course, I recognized him immediately. And I walked up and reintroduced myself. And we spent the rest of that homecoming hanging out together. And we called each other a lot after that and kindled quite a friendship. I was elected to the alumni board and had some involvement there with the trail ride. And so I started calling JC and try to get JC rounded up to go to the trail ride. And of course, JC figured out right away. He says, well, hell, trail ride's not for me. Those people ride horses. They got their own deal going. That's not my gig. And I said, no, JC, come on down. It'll be a good time. You'll see all your old friends. And so he still wasn't going for it. And I said, well, I'll tell you what, we'll make a motorcycle trip. We'll hit the whole western U.S. and we'll just throw a trail ride in. So that's what we did. And my wife and I met JC at the hotel in Reno, Nevada. We rode down from Northern Oregon on our motorcycles and met him. And JC had the Gold Wing with a trailer behind it. And so off we went across Nevada in a driving rainstorm. It took us 2 days to get across Nevada, and it rained the whole time. And that didn't slow us down. We had a great time. And, every time we'd stop, JC would open that trailer, and open the trailer is like, you can't imagine what might be in there, Lemon bars, a giant cooler full of Fosters, tables, chairs, a charcoal broiler, a folding table, and, I don't know, 500 or 600 pounds more stuff that you can't live without on a motorcycle trip. Anyway, JC allowed us how his friends usually made fun of him for pulling that trailer, and he said anybody that made fun of him didn't get a cold Foster's out of his cooler at the end of the day. Anyway, we had a great trip, and at the end of every riding day, JC would tell stories and we'd talk, and we became very close. And we came down to that trail ride at the CS Ranch, beautiful CS Ranch there, and JC, we came riding in, and well, the first thing that happened was JC was a man of gadgets. JC had gadgets that would do things I can't even begin to describe. One of the gadgets he had was a hatchet, and it had a knife that went up into the handle of the hatchet. And JC, he's getting his tent all lined up. First, you have to lay out the lines so you figure out how it's squared up perfectly. And once you get that done, you start into driving these stakes. And JC's driving these stakes, and one of the times he goes to swing the back end of that hatchet onto the tent stake, the knife fell out on the ground with the blade sticking up. And JC came down with that hatchet, and the knife blade went right through his wrist here. And that bothered him quite a bit. But Randy was there, and Randy fixed him up, and everything's back good again. And the things like that didn't tend to slow down JC for very long. Anyway, we had a great time, and that was it. JC found his people. He found what he wanted to do, and you couldn't keep him away from a trail ride. He would try to register for the trail ride next year at the trail ride this year. And he was always disappointed they wouldn't let him do that. But he was generally the first person that registered for trail rides after that. Because he'd call every day and find out when it was the first day he could register. Yeah, yeah, yes, and JC notified everybody that he had registered for next year's trail ride, and I look forward to seeing him there. And but JC loved flying. He did love flying, and I'm a pilot, and my wife is a pilot, and we built airplanes, and we lived in Oregon at an air park, and had a big hangar, and it was kind of a flop house. We had couches and TVs in the hangar, and JC rolled in there in his gold ring, and he says, "I'm staying here." And all of his friends that had ridden up the coast with him, they all had a motel room, and JC had a motel room here as well. And he told him, he said, "Yeah, but you guys, you get to sleep with your TV. I get to sleep with an airplane." We like that. So I had a couple of different projects going, and JC was like a little kid. He'd get into these projects that we had going. You couldn't even get him out. He had to crawl in head first, upside down, with a flashlight, looking at every little thing, and he'd ask all these questions, and he had to take all these pictures of what he was looking at. And it was just, you couldn't give him enough information. JC was always in search of the next piece of information that he needed. And, you know, they say that the most important thing about being a pilot is the next two things. It's not what you're doing now, it's the next two things. And JC was an awesome pilot, and he didn't keep track of the next two things, he kept track of about the next 10. And it's just who he was. And over time, we did become very much like brothers, and at some point, I distinctly remember the conversations. JC had that way of saying something that you weren't really sure if it was a joke or if he was just dead serious about it. And I remember the day he said, "You know, Bob, I've never had much of a family. I just want to tell you that I really feel like I'm part of your family, and I just am going to be your family." And I said, "Oh, that's good." I said, "I feel the same way." He said, "No, I don't mean like good friend, brother, family." He said, "I mean family like me and you are brothers." And that's when I realized he was serious. That's who he was, and he could be at the same time very professional and detached and objective. But JC every now and then would open his heart and just show you exactly what was there. And so few of us have the ability to do that. So this friendship JC and I had for quite a while, and I lost a good friend in a flying accident in Oregon, and I had known the guy for a few years, and I had helped him build an airplane, and helped him and his wife plan this trip of a lifetime, and they trip all over California in this new plane. Well, they crashed the plane in Death Valley, and he lost his life, and I was shredded. And I called JC, and JC scrubbed a mission to let somebody fly so that he could spend time with me and talk about that, because he knew that I needed that. And a few years later, JC calls me and he says, "Well, I knew something was wrong. You weren't talking right, you know." And finally, he goes, "This has been a terrible day." He says, "The guy just died here on my property." I said, "Gosh, it's terrible, JC." And he had hired a guy to come out and trim trees, and the guy fell out of the tree and lost his life. And JC was right there, and it really affected him that there was nothing he could do. And it affected him to the point where he called me almost every day for 2 or 3 days about this. And I finally wrote a long letter to him, like 6 pages. And I just sent it to him, and I didn't hear anything back from him. And he said, "Thanks for sending it." And about 6 months later, he called me one day, and he said, "Bob, I just called. I wanted to tell you that I've finally come to grips with where I was." And he said, "I just wanted to tell you thank you for sending me that." And he said, "You know what? I blamed myself for so much of that. And he said, I realize now that that doesn't make any sense, you know. He said, I just felt bad because there was nothing I could do to change it. And that's kind of the way I feel now. There's really nothing I can do to change anything. What I can do is, though, is I can be a little bit like JC, and I need to, and we all need to. You know, it was after I got the terrible news last week and started getting calls from people I didn't know that knew JC, wanted to talk about JC. And I learned so much of what he was doing with other people, helping them, supporting them, and I didn't know about. I didn't know that he was meeting with vets that had come back that had PTSD. I didn't know that he was mentoring high school students. I didn't know that he was doing a lot of these things, writing letters, visiting people, sending people little mementos, sending them a card, saying, I know that was a tough time you went through, and I'm here for you. And I don't think a lot of us knew that particular side of JC. And I got a call from some of his friends at California Highway Patrol, and they all feel about like we do today. And he left a mark there, and he has a whole family there that's grieving like we are. But they said the same thing. I talked to Bill Carbaugh, who's JC's very, very close friend that JC worked for many years. He was a senior officer there in CHP. Bill told me, he said, you know, there's probably not been an officer in CHP that touched as many people in the organization as JC did. He said, you know, we live a pretty rough life here in the law enforcement community in California. And he said, JC really never lost the special touch of being a human. You know, as law enforcement officers, you know, they often saw things that nobody should have to see, and JC was right in the middle of that. And Bill Carbaugh told me, he said, if anybody had anything happen bad to them, he said, you know, JC handled it. He just handled it. He handled it a lot of times before the chaplain even contacted somebody. JC had already called the family. He was there. He was really there. I think one of the things I remember the most about JC is, you know, like all of us, you know, not everybody was a friend to JC. He had some issues with people every now and then. But you know, JC would also find some good in everybody. And there were some times when, you know, some of the bad side of me would come out, and JC would say, you know, we ought not to be like that. We ought to be, you know, the right way. And that's the way JC, that's the way he knew to be. He knew to do the right thing. He knew to do, you know, the proper thing. He was, as Randy said, he was a little anally retentive. When we were on motorcycle touring trips together, JC would wash his whole motorcycle every time he filled it with gas during the day. And we'd be on trying to get on a plan so that we got to our campsite or our hotel site before dark. But JC, sometimes it'd take him 30 minutes to wash the bugs off his bike after we filled it with gas. And my wife and I were sitting there waiting to go, and JC would wash his bugs. And we get on the bike and we drive 200 miles, and it'd just be covered with bugs. So we pull into the gas station, JC would get off, get his wet rag out, and get right to work. And so I started, I would take a bug off my bike. After he washed his bike, he'd be putting stuff back away, and I'd take some dead grasshopper off the front of my bike and I'd stick it on his. The JC would come to the bike and he'd almost fall down. And he said, "What? thought I got them all up here, and he'd have to go back and make another second round and make sure nothing else needed to be done before it was ready to go. My wife and I motorcycle a lot, and you get used to traveling with somebody. And we meet up with JC, and we'd all go get on our bikes and start them up and warm them up for 20 or 30 seconds and ride away. But JC, that's not JC. JC, he spend 20 minutes checking every lens, every bolt, every cotter pin, every latch, every switch had to be in the right position. The mirrors adjusted and cleaned, everything right before it was time to ride that motorcycle. And of course, everybody else was just sitting there waiting for him to finish. And then he had to program the GPS, and that all had to be turn by turn. That would take another 20 minutes or so. And I talked to his friend Bill Conlon last week, and I said, I'll never forget that it could take JC up to an hour to be ready to ride a motorcycle. And he broke up laughing. He says, "Oh, you noticed that too?" I said, "Yes, that's one of the things I will remember is that JC was he was a little bit particular about things, and a wonderful pilot, a wonderful man. He brought so much joy into so many people's lives because he was so real, so genuine, so much the real thing. And I will miss him."
I don't know who ordered the helicopter, but that's freaking you.
Yeah.
That's serendipity right there.
What's that?
That's serendipity.
Yes. Well, like I said, I'll remember JC for the rest of my life, and I'm just so happy that I was able to learn a few lessons from him, and to know somebody that set such an awesome example of what it is to be a good man, and he was.
I don't deserve to be up here. I'm just up here, I guess, because I'm a lucky guy. Lucky in a variety of ways, but I got to know JC too. And I'm going to try my best to keep it brief. I would love to tell stories about JC for hours, and we're going to have that opportunity tonight. But what I really want to do is I want to point out the fact that there are people here from California. There are people here from the Dakotas. There are people here from Texas. There are a few people here from Albuquerque. We're not here because some guy from the Institute died. We're here because we love JC. And JC never demanded love. He never said, "Love me." What he did was he loved us. He never demanded respect. But I don't think there's anybody here that didn't respect the ground he walked on. His boots, his hat, his beer can, for God's sakes, his whiskey. We respected him because he gave us all respect. He never looked at any one of us as being anything other than his mentor, his role model, his friend, his family. And I think that that's really what I want to communicate to all of us is we can honor JC moving forward, as we all should, because he's put so much into all of our lives. We can honor him by remembering that you don't demand love, you love. You don't demand respect, you respect people. You honor people. And in so honoring, you build yourself into their lives in such a way that you will never, ever, ever be forgotten. And that's the second thing that I want to say is JC is now at all of our sixes. There is not a thing that we will do from this day forward, and I think every one of us know that. There's not a thing that we can do from this day forward that JC won't be at our back. And every one of our backs. You know, he has found a way. He has found a way to be with every one of us for the rest of our lives. And God bless him for that. Sláinte.
Sláinte.
Okay. People that don't know who I am, I'm Hotshot Hendricks.
You want to talk into the microphone?
And I'm looking out in the crowd right now, and I'm going, golly, what put us all together? A common denominator. Hot shot. And the common denominator, first of all, we're alumni. But second of all, we were all brought to here together. I'm telling you, this is the trail ride and the trail ride only. And I would, there's so many people. I've never gotten reacquainted with Doc Brown, anybody, if it hadn't been for the trail ride. So, being that said, now I'm not very good at this, so I might have to look at my notes every once in a while because I might forget what I'm going to say. But the things I'd like to say about JC is if you ever became a friend of JC, you had a friend for life. And he was very loyal to his friends. Very loyal. And right or wrong, he was going to be there for his friend. For that person, I guess I should say. To defend that person however needed to be. Under any circumstances. And being that said, bear with me for a minute. I got to tell a little story on Bob French, JC, Doc Brown, and the middle patron Sterling Hendricks. And Bob French brought a group of spring breakers down to the ranch to experience ranch life. And so, okay, so it was good in the start. You know, we were having a joyous time and this, that, and the other. And so I started handing out pliers and gloves and stay wire. And I was going, well, all right, boys, we're going to go experience ranch life. And so I took them so far away and had to tie cedar stays on about, well, we did 1.5 miles in one day. Well, JC and Bob French stayed with the Minnesota fence crew. And so every once in a while, I would slip out there and give them a bottled water or a bologna sandwich while the middle patron, Sterling Hendricks, and Dr. Brown, I don't know what they were doing, but they were not on the fence crew. They were doing other things, and so you know, as the day goes on, you know, I mean, it was a pretty long day, leaving them out there going through all that cat claw and cholla bushes and stuff like that, and so all of a sudden it was a freak thunderstorm come up in the middle of March, and I was going, golly, somebody might get hit with lightning. So I got in this old 1978 pickup with a flatbed pickup. And I was going, well, they're not all going to fit in the front seat. So, I mean, they piled on that pickup. I mean, they were getting on the propane tank, jumping everywhere, and off we go. I mean, they were so glad to get on that pickup. Lightning was hitting everywhere. And we get back to where Doc Brown and the middle patron Sterling Hendricks was at, and they were still lollygagging doing what they were doing. And so the boys said, "We want to get the hell out of here." And I went, "Well, no, you know what? It's not dark." I kept telling them all day long, "You know what? It's not dark yet. When it gets dark, we'll go to the house." And so they kind of questioned my reasoning on that, but we hung up there and we put up the last stretch of the fence, got it all tied in, and JC wouldn't leave. Absolutely would not leave. And all the spring, I mean, the whole crew could have just left at any time, but no one left. They stayed till we finished. And we left before dark because I was ready to get the hell out of there. But in closing is what I'd like to say is JC was one of those kind of guys that would help you way before he would hurt you. That's all I got to say.
Thank you, Chuck.
I'm not good at that.
He's a tough one to follow right there. My gosh. This is indeed an honor, true honor for me to be up here and talk. Got back together with JC during the trail rides up at the ranch at the CS Cimarron, New Mexico. This group right here that comes to that ride is the best bunch of people that I call true friends. And by God, anybody that's here that goes to that ride or that school, God bless you guys. God bless JC. I love you all. And I'm going to do a little something different. I'm going to read I'm kind of an aviator myself. I'm going to read a poem called High Flight by John Gillespie McGee Jr. And in true trail rider form, I'm going to say, JC, saddle up, you son of a bitches. Oh, I have slipped the surly bonds of earth and danced the skies on laughter's silver wings. Sunward I've climbed and joined the tumbling mirth of sun-split clouds and done 100 things. You have not dreamed of wheel and sword and swung. High in the sunlight silence hovering there, I've chased the shouting wing along and flung my eager craft through footless halls of air. Up, long, delirious, burning blue, I've topped the wind-swept heights with easy grace, where never a lark or even eagle flew. And while with silent lifting mind I've trod the high untressed sanctity of space, I put out my hand and touched the face of God. God bless you all. God bless JC. The gate's always open at CS. Thank you all very much.
Hi, everybody. I'm Nikki B. Hill, and I'm a friend of JC's. I'm going to read also a poem. It's called Impressions of a Pilot by Gary Claude Stoker. Flight is freedom in its purest form, to dance with the clouds which follow a storm, to roll and glide, to wheel and spin, to feel the joy that swells within, to leave the earth with its troubles and fly, to know the warmth of a clear spring sky, then back to earth at the end of the day, released from the tensions which melted away. Should my end come while I am in flight, whether brightest day or darkest night, spare me no pity and shrug off the pain, secure in the knowledge that I would do it again. For each of us is created to die, and within me, I know I was born to fly.
Hello, I'm Bob French. I was JC's roommate a long time ago. And first, I want to tell you thank you so much for being here, because if it weren't for you, there's just no way I'd be able to do this. You are each and every one lifting me, and I just want to say a few things. Ever since we became roommates at NMMI over 40 years ago, JC Dodd has been my standard for what a stand-up guy is, my standard for what it means to have standards and to live by them, my standard for what friendship means, my standard for how to love life and how to love. I'm so honored and humbled that I met him so long ago, and I have those standards to live by. Well, let me tell you a few standards, just a couple of stories. First one's about cleanliness. You all know what a formal inspection is? Back in 1976, it's an annual formal inspection. Part of that is the barracks inspection, and we wore a gold star. That means that we were an honor unit with distinction, and we'd had it since 1909. And we weren't going to lose it that year. And JC took it on his personal mission to make sure that we were not going to lose it that year. We mopped the floor, we wiped everything down, we used the newspaper trick on the glass. You guys know that trick? About 11 o'clock at night, I thought we were done. Our room looked pretty good. JC just looked at me and said, "We're not done. We're not going to be done until BRC." I said, "All right, I guess we're going to have to, because JC is not the kind of guy you have an objection with. Just a more single-minded and stubborn person you have not met." We heard "Take It to the Limit" by the Eagles. You guys remember what the quadriga used to sound like? The doors slamming, people hooting and hollering. Those noises were starting to dwindle down by midnight, but our steam was just starting to roll. The first thing we did, we pulled everything out of the room. I mean everything. The racks, the bunks, our clothing, everything. Because how can you clean it, right, unless it's complete? We stripped and scrubbed that linoleum. Have you ever scrubbed a 1 millimeter strip of linoleum with a toothbrush at 2 o'clock in the morning with a nose full of ammonia?
Of course we have.
We all. And I learned something from JC that night. I learned a lot of things, but one of the things is that to be thorough, and he was thorough. You know how you clean everything, like a desk or whatever, you clean the top of it, you clean out the inside of the drawers and all that. No, what we did is we did all that, and then we turned everything upside down. All of the desks, the drawers, the beds, everything upside down, and we did it all over again from the bottom down, right? So everything was great. One by one, we brought that back into the room, and we didn't miss anything. I mean, JC did not miss anything. And we got it all put together by BRC, and that year, only one room got 0 gigs. That was Bravo 306.
Right on.
And let me tell you about standards for academics. So a couple of years later, we're applying for college. I applied to Annapolis. I didn't apply anywhere else. JC, though, he applied to Annapolis, West Point, Air Force Academy, Merchant Marine Academy, Coast Guard Academy. And if that weren't enough, he went ahead and applied for 3 ROTC scholarships, too, and he got them all. It was just complete blow away. And doesn't that sound just like that kind of guy? Right? He could have gone anywhere in the country. But he surprised me. He went to Navy. Because I found out that what he really wanted to be was a pilot. And he knew that the Navy pilots were the best in the world, and that's where he was going to go. Well, during the plebe summer, I didn't see him much because they keep you compartmentalized where they're doing their compression gig. And I got a call towards the end of the summer, and it was JC, and we met in a room, and he explained to me that he was going to move on. And his answer was, "I'm not a college boy. I just don't fit in here." And I think all of you know what I'm talking about. He knew that he had a different path. He enlisted in the Marine Corps, and the rest of his illustrious career is well recorded, so I'm not going to go into it here. But I just wanted you to know about, the origin, right? Because I can tell you from those earliest days. Let me tell you about loving life and joy. We had such great times together, and I know a lot of these stories are going to be told today. Trail rides, ATVs, scotch, shooting at hot shots, the aforementioned thrills that we had.
Propane bottles.
I went out to visit him a few times, and he taught me how to fly his Bell helicopter. We worked in his incredible blacksmithing shop, and what a joy that was. It was a beautiful thing. Of course, every single tool that you need, he made 10 of them. He didn't have an anvil, he had 3. And I love that. And let me tell you about standards for brotherly love. I didn't understand what brotherly love was until JC and I reunited at that aforementioned 1998 reunion Bob was talking about earlier. We had been, corresponding with each other, letters, phone calls, and whatnot. We hadn't actually seen each other until then. And it was my first experience with brotherly love, and JC, he loved you like a family, right? We became a big family, but only the ideal aspects of it. I think it's that the cauldron of NMMI, military service, service to others, it creates a camaraderie, and you know what I'm talking about. It can't be replicated any other way. The bond is fierce and strong, and JC epitomized it. And that's why I feel like right now a part of me has been literally ripped out of my body, and it is raw, but I know it will heal, and I know that you all are still with me. And together, we'll cherish his memory forever.
Good afternoon. My name is Denise Cowis-Peebles. How do you start a farewell speech to someone that you love that was taken away from you suddenly? How do you express the deep sadness, the ache, and the void that has been left in your heart and soul? You can't. You would be speaking up here for a week expressing who JC was and what he meant to all of us. I chose to be selfish in my farewell speech and express to you who JC was to me. I chose to share some of my memories of JC with you. JC, Greg, and I ratted together 8 years ago at our first trail ride in the CS Ranch. We did rat.
Red Riders.
That first trail ride was a bit overwhelming as a female, to say the least. But that's where I met JC, Randy Brown, Bob Brown, the Zimmerman boys, Nikki, Tanya, and none other than Hot Shot.
Oh.
That trail ride was the beginning of our friendship. One of the things that I love about going to the trail ride is that I'm able to do things that I wouldn't normally do in my everyday life. ATVing, zip lining, whitewater rafting, and that's just a little bit of drinking. JC became an integral part of my adventurous side that I didn't know that I had and that it existed. With JC at the helm of the ATV, I heard myself saying, "Go faster! How fast can we go? We can take that hill." JC would go fast, and I would yell, "Woohoo!" Speaking of yelling, "Woohoo!" JC made the mistake of sharing this comment with Greg, Harvard, and myself one day. He said, "You know, when Denise yells woohoo in the back of the ATV, It's like kryptonite. I can't say no to her. What he didn't realize was that he was my kryptonite when it came to adventure. With JC, I felt safe to go fast, to zip line when I am petrified of heights. I knew he had my back and he would take care of me. JC, as we all know, is an adventure junkie. I don't think there was anything he wouldn't try once, and nothing scared him. Well, maybe that's not exactly true. There have been 2 occasions that I have seen JC turn white and get a pained look in his face. Did you know that there are 5 words that will bring JC down to his knees? Those 5 little innocent words. Do you want to dance? He would look at me with this scared expression on his face. But he knew it was futile to turn me down. I would just keep asking until he said yes. Or I'd just whisper, woohoo! The second occasion was watching JC cook for Greg and I. The man was actually stressed out, and I don't think he took a full breath until we sat down to eat. We spent this past Christmas with JC, and it was a holiday I will never forget. Christmas Eve, he took us up on the Huey, and that was my first helicopter ride. And he had some fun with me. I was honored to be his co-pilot. I use that term loosely because I sat down and he goes, "You see that lever? That's going to go up and down. Don't touch it. You see these gadgets? Don't touch them. Don't touch anything until I tell you you can touch it." But the number 1 rule he had, he says, "Denise, there is no woo-hooing in the Huey." And I go, not even just a little woo-hooing? No woo-hooing in the Huey. Because you know it makes me do crazy shit. On the way back from the ranch, he turns to me and he goes, "You haven't asked me the question everybody asks." Okay. I said, "What's that question?" "How fast can we go?" I said, "All right." I said, "How fast can we go?" And he turned around. And he had this huge smile on his face. And he goes, "It's not how fast we can go, it's how slow can we go." And he proceeds to slow down that Huey. And those blades are slowing down. And I am grabbing on to the seats that are Italian leather, by the way. And don't leave your fingernails on the Italian leather. And he goes, "Are you scared yet?" "Yes." "Yes, I am." And he just laughed, his full JC smile and laughter. We didn't know that Christmas would be the last time that we would see each other. We had so many plans. We were excited because we were only 4 hours away from each other. And in fact, this weekend, we were supposed to be at his place, spending the weekend just because. The loss is unbearable. I miss you, JC. I miss talking to you. I miss texting you. Your sarcasm, thoughtfulness, your voice, your hugs, and your friendship. You showed us all how to be a true friend. Through this tragedy, we have come to realize that we should live our lives as if tomorrow will never come. You lived your life to the fullest every day, and we should do the same. I stand before you broken, not knowing how to deal with my grief. But I know JC would not want that for me or for all of us. So I will choose to live my life as JC did, to the fullest. And I will choose to let my friends know that I love them, and I will strive to be the friend that JC was to all of us. Lastly, to the Brown family, you were the family that JC longed for. Bob, he was forever grateful to you for bringing him back to the NMMI family and for taking him to the trail ride, for being his friend. Antia, he loved your quiet strength and how you opened your arms and your heart and your family to him. Sarah and Scott, you gave him the opportunity to be in your lives and to be their surrogate uncle. Francis, you embraced him as a son, and that made a great deal to JC. Randy, you were the brother he never had. He would tell me that as soon as he saw those Alamo signs, he was home. He told me he would feel at peace with you and your family. He loved all of you very much. JC, you were loved by many, and you will be greatly missed.
I have a lot of notes, but I don't think I can see them. I first met JC on August 19th, 1975. I didn't remember that date. I had to go look it up. But that's the same year that when we were new cadets together. We were Rats in Bravo Troop, along with Brian, Bob, John, quite a few of us. We're all Rats in 1975. And JC and I were both in Bravo Troop. We were both on the drill team together. JC made the drill team very, very easily. That was something that he loved. I was told that I was going out for the drill team, and then I would make the drill team, and I barely made it. We had a drill off, and I was the last person to make it. The night before the drill off, though, JC came to my room and he says, "Ron, you will make the drill team." He pushed me. I needed pushing. JC was an overachiever, larger than life. He became best new cadet. He did everything that he could do to the fullest at the Institute. I, on the other hand, did exactly the opposite. I tried to fly under the radar. I didn't want anybody to notice me. The less people that saw me, the less push-ups I did. I didn't want to do it. I was there. But making the drill team was a big deal.
Goss Rifles brought us together. We had a lot of fun on that team. We traveled all over the place. We traveled to Colorado Springs. We traveled to Fort Huachuca. We traveled to El Paso. We came here to Albuquerque. We went several other places. I don't remember all the places. I didn't know all the places we were. All I knew was we were getting on the bus and going somewhere. But he was always there with me. He was there. He was my friend. There were 16 of us on the drill team, and we excelled. Michael Bernard was our drill team commander, and we excelled. We won every single drill meet we attended. Not only did we won inspections, we won the drills, we won everything. We came back with trophies that were 5 feet tall, 4 or 5 feet tall. Filled up Dow Hall with those trophies, and it gave me a feeling of being a part of something. I'd never had that feeling before. I was just a little kid. I weighed 116 pounds. I was 5'6" when I first got to the institute. And without JC pushing me, I wouldn't have done that. The next year, again in Bravo Troop, we won Harry Morrison. And again, it was part of being a group, being a family, being pushed to excel. I was not that type of person. I just kind of went along with the flow. Did enough to get by. But with his help and with other people's help, being a team, we excelled. Our time at the Institute together was incredible. But pretty soon I realized something was wrong. What happened to JC? Oh, he graduated last year. What do you mean he graduated? We were 6 class rats together, and all of a sudden he graduates? He graduated a year early. A year early. We'll find out he was going home and taking summer school classes. We did a lot of stuff together. We were in chess club, squid squad, radio operators class. He excelled at everything. That radio operators class was hard. It wasn't a regular class, where we got credit for. It was a class that we took to get a radio operator's license. It was a state test that we had to take to get the license. I didn't pass it. JC not only passed the radio operator's license test, he went on and also took, at the same day, he took the radio engineer's class, or test, and passed that as well. I think he was one of only 2 people that passed that test. The other one was a 45-year-old man from Roswell that needed to take that for his work, for his livelihood. It wasn't long after the Institute that we lost track of each other. He came back, talked to us, told us what life was like outside in the real world. And then I didn't see him much after that. He was off doing other things. But fast forward a few years, I ran into JC again at homecoming, like a lot of you guys did. And we reconnected, or we got reacquainted. But it wasn't really until Trail Ride that we reconnected. And he came up to me and said, "Ron, do you have a sponsor?" I said, "No." He says, "Well, okay, you're my rat rider." I said, "Okay." I didn't know what that meant. Well, that's when we started becoming close again. The thing that impressed me about JC is that he was friends with everybody, and he became close friends with my wife. Shalene is probably the best judge of character I've ever known, and she's become friends with a lot of you in here. Not everybody, but she knows how to read people, and she knows how to connect to people. And we were really happy to find out that JC was moving closer. Got to see him along with Greg and Denise over Christmas. Shared some time with him. Shared a lot of stories. And with all of his experiences, his flying, his hobby, time and the effort that he took moving from California to start a new career, he did something that means more to me than all of that stuff, all those accomplishments. he sent us a simple Christmas card. It said, "Dear Ron and Shalene, first of all, Shalene, thank you for all your kind words. They mean a great deal to me. I'm so glad you guys have joined our trail ride camp and we have reconnected. I'm quite fortunate to have such awesome friends. I'm very proud and happy to include you two as some of my very best friends, JC. JC probably wrote a lot of these because he had a lot of friends. But this touched me. It touched me the day that we received it. It touches me even more now.
Well, you're lucky you get to see me again. If y'all don't mind, somebody back there start passing out the scotch shots because we're going to be doing a toast here shortly when Jordy gets up here. I'm going to be pretty brief. As we've all known through our lives, we've had heroes that we know that we have considered people we've always looked up to. I've been thinking about that a lot lately. You know, I go back to my childhood. I remember my junior high basketball coach, Bob Ballard. He was just a hero of mine. He was a retired Marine drill sergeant who decided to go into coaching, and he was just a great guy. And, you know, my dad was one of my greatest heroes ever. And then when I got to the Institute, I met a couple of guys that I thought were just the epitome of it. One of them just happens to be here today. Scott Buckles. He was my first sergeant. And his running buddy, Brian Welch, was my field first sergeant. And they were the epitome of what I wanted to be as an old cadet. I mean, they didn't haze us. You know, they treated us like we were just regular guys. And I was lucky enough to become platoon leader for Brian, and Scott was a troop commander on the slab with us. And I mean, I just looked up to those guys, you know. And then later on in life, my battalion commander, when I was in an infantry unit on active duty, Colonel Lloyd, who ended up being a brigadier general. I mean, those are the heroes in your life. If you took the best of every one of those guys, that was J.C. Dodd. I looked up to him like he was my older brother, even though he was 3 years younger than me. I look at it every day and I think the guy was a hero. I mean, he was a hero, and he was just one of those guys I looked up to. And he was my friend. And I remember him as a hero. I miss my friend. I want you guys to know that y'all are all my friends, and when I was up at this house Tuesday gathering some of this stuff to bring down here, the Art Brooks song came on, "If Tomorrow Never Comes." Well, you know how much I love you, and I hope y'all do. We've all said it. I think Randy said it as good as anybody, and it's really hard to come up here and follow my wife. Well, she can put a speech out. I love you guys. I know y'all love us. I know y'all love me. And if we don't say it enough, when y'all leave here, know how much you're loved by everybody out here. Every time we left JC, he told us he loved us. I'm not going to hear that anymore from him, but I sure to God hope I hear it from you guys.
We love you, Greg.
Love you, Greg.
Jordy, you'll give the pilots toast.
Yeah, I wanted to let everybody know I put together a little in memoriam book that I hope gets 5 times as thick. So feel free to email me stuff. But in any case, it has a lot of what you heard today. I went to NMMI as a 15-year-old punk from Grant Junior High in Albuquerque, New Mexico. to play football, something I'd never done before. And my roommate was Billy Stockton, the coach's son. And I found out about 2 weeks before Kadri showed up that Jordy Womack was never going to play a football game. So I quit football the first week of school, and I went up to J.C. Dodd and said, "Can I try out for Goss?" And him and Dave Bodie said, "Yeah, you can try out." So I met J.C. 1 week into my rat year, which was his third class year. He was getting ready to graduate in 3 years instead of 4, because he told his dad, "If you send me there, I'll do it in 3." He was recruiting for Goss, and I jumped at the chance. And being on that team with JC and Nori Arif, who I'm still trying to find. I knew him at UNM, but I haven't seen him in 30 years. Desiree LaFont, who I'm proud to say is a friend. Jeff Harms, Andrea Williamson, and all the others. It gave me a great respect for precision and working toward perfection, something that JC did pretty easily. It didn't surprise me at all that JC continued to exude all those same traits throughout his life when I saw him 35 years later and we renewed our friendship. But I always felt honored. I always felt honored to be in his presence. And we had some great discussions over the past 10 years. He taught me how to figure things out with Beverly Sue and those I didn't agree with. On all levels. I mean, you may get along on 90% of issues, but there's that little thing. He'd tell me, Jordy, you can kind of let all that go and talk to her just personally. So anyway, I want to close today with a poem I wrote about 10 years ago for a fighter pilot that ran into a mountain at Oscura Range in White Sands, New Mexico. Good friend of mine. I wrote it for him, but the poem, it's really written for all those like JC, all those folks that give of themselves without reservation, if you will. So, if you don't mind standing and grabbing some Macallan, this is called a toast of remembrance. For those of us who've taken off, whom fate never allowed to land, I now ask that all who are present raise a toast of remembrance in hand. We are all here to laugh and talk, but the silence of their absence speaks of a warrior's oath to their nation and the promises that he keeps. To support and defend truth and honor, to place service before themselves, to avoid fear and hesitation where the demon of complacency dwells. They achieve the goals of so many, and though their physical presence departs, the words duty, honor, and country remain as an echo in all of our hearts. May their dreams be enshrined in us always. May their hopes be loud as we strive for honoring those now departed. We forever keep them alive. Here's to J.C. Dodd.
Here.
And salute.